Chapter 26. We are all in this together. While the kids ate, Jack put a pancake over his face that he had bitten out 2 small eye holes and 1 larger mouth hole. He looked through it like a mask and began groaning in an old ghoulish voice. "Ooh, children, you are scared of the pancake man. Now give me your pancakes, ooh!" Acting frightened, Adam quickly threw Jack one of his pancakes. All the children erupted in laughter. Lincoln couldn't control himself and promptly spit out the orange juice he was attempting to drink at the exact moment. This caused the group to laugh even harder. Lake was no longer sitting up, but rather lying on her chair, almost hyperventilating with laughter. Even Malcolm was laughing and enjoying himself. Both Adam and Verona thought that it felt good to laugh, because it seemed like it had been way too long since any of them had anything to laugh about. But it felt even better for the 2 older siblings to see little Lake and little Lincoln laughing together. Almost an hour after Verona's phone call, Mr. and Mrs. Teller ran into the pancake house. They were both out of breath and frantically scanning the large room. Malcolm, who had been watching the door when he wasn't laughing with his new friends, saw his parents walk in. He got up and ran to them, giving them both big hugs. Mrs. Teller soon looked at Verona and the other 4 children with smudged mascara running down her cheeks and wet tissues in her hands. The grateful mother gave each of them great big bear hugs, thanking them over and over again. Then Mr. Teller and Malcolm came over to where they were all standing, just to the side of their breakfast table. Mr. Teller said, "Thank you all. We didn't know what happened. We were sleeping on the train when, all of a sudden, there was a loud crash, and we were being thrown into the air. I must have been knocked unconscious because the next thing I knew, I woke up lying on the floor that used to be the wall of our cabin." Adam noticed a large knot just to the left of the man's forehead. Mr. Teller continued, "Our cabin was destroyed, and the train car was off the tracks and lying on its side. I looked around and saw Yvonne slowly trying to stand up. We looked at each other, realizing, I believe, simultaneously that Malcolm was not with the other. We both frantically began searching the area. We couldn't find Malcolm. In the confusion, he must have wandered off and gotten lost. We had made him a lanyard just in case we were ever to become separated. He is autistic and has trouble communicating, but we didn't know if he even had it with him. Thank God he did. And thank God he's okay. And thank God you all found him. We cannot thank you enough." The group listened at first with concern, but then they all smiled. After another minute, Mrs. Teller asked the question Adam knew was coming. "Where are your parents?" Expecting this, Adam answered, "We were all on the train heading north to visit my grandmother, who lives in Mountain, North Dakota." The 2 adults suspiciously nodded because it didn't really answer the question. Then Adam attempted to quickly change the subject and asked, "Do you know where we are?" The man answered, "Cummings, North Dakota. We're about 50 miles north of Fargo." Adam turned to Lake and whispered, "We must be close." Then turning back to the Tellers, he asked, "Do you know when the train will be ready?" Mr. Teller frowned and informed the group that the storm caused significant damage to the train, and there was no telling how long it would be. "Could be weeks," he added. Then the man offered, "We are about to see if we can find a place to rent a car. We can give you a ride if you want. It's the least we can do for you, for finding Malcolm and keeping him safe. Besides, we can't leave 5 children stranded in the middle of nowhere." Then Mr. Teller pulled his credit card out of his wallet and walked to the front counter to pay for the children's breakfast. Adam, Verona, and Jack huddled up. Adam said, "If we can get to my grandma's house, then maybe she could help you find your moon woman." Jack smiled from ear to ear and said, "I just left for an adventure, and this is definitely an adventure." Verona thought for a moment and looked over at Lincoln, still sitting with and talking to Lake. She thought about her friend, a sir. Then she asked, "Where does your grandmother live again?" Adam pulled the envelope from his pocket. Verona read, 444 Angels Road, Mountain, North Dakota. Verona seemed to be in deep thought for a minute. The others were all talking, and Mrs. Teller was still squeezing Malcolm while checking him out, making sure he was all right, and everything was just as she remembered. Mr. Teller turned from paying the bill and was patiently waiting for an answer. Verona finally looked Adam directly in his eyes and said, "Who knows? Maybe it wasn't an accident that we met. I'm starting to believe that we were supposed to meet and help each other. My friend told me to find the Moon Woman. If I head north, the Moon Woman would reveal herself to me. I know you think that is crazy. I mean, so do I. What is even crazier is that I left home without telling my parents and took my 8-year-old brother on a dangerous journey across the country without even knowing where we were going. But then I met you, and you were also on a journey to keep your family together, find your grandmother, and get back to your parents. A sir told me that the Moon Woman lives on top of the world with the angels, and you tell me your grandmother lives way up north at 444 Angels Road. Sounds like you are what was revealed. After all, you are the one to tell us that we are all in this together, right? I think your grandmother can help me find the Moon Woman." Adam nodded at Verona and patted Jack on his shoulder, then turned to Mr. Teller and enthusiastically exclaimed, "We're in."